I'm not talking about giving today. I'm talking about abundance. But they are connected ideas. Several weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who has some wealth. I don't have a lot of wealthy friends. They don't want to hang out with me. I don't know why. Just kidding. But it was a very insightful conversation. It's one that I could not have initiated because I have never been in what I would consider a wealthy mindset. And his comment to me was, the church today throughout America has sanctified poverty and vilified wealth. Now, the person I'm talking about is one of the most sacrificial giving people I know. And so, but I had to agree with him because I've been in ministry for 30 years. And in that 30 years, I have seen people be vilified just because they had wealth. Now, what I've learned over the years, and I learned this through my own experience, through relationships, through some work by a lady named Ruby Payne, who wrote on, she did a lot of work for the school systems about wealth and wealth classes, middle class, and poverty classes. What I've realized is wealth is a mindset, not a bank account number, not an asset list. Wealth is the way you think, and it's the way you look at your resources and how you use them. I believe that Christians should be wealthy. Now, do I mean you should be rich? I mean, rich could be a problem if you don't handle it well. In fact, I know a lot of people who are rich. I know a few people who are rich but are not wealthy. They have plenty of assets and resources, but the way they handle those resources is with a mindset of poverty. In fact, that was an observation I made about Rock Springs over 20 years ago when I came. I was driving out north, not far from where I live now, and there's a trailer park up on the mountain. And I drive by, and this was back in 2003, 2004, and I'm driving through this trailer park praying for it, and I see a trailer that's worth $1,500 max. And then I see it surrounded by $150,000 worth of toys. Trailers, ATVs, boats, all these kind of things. And I'm like, that is what poverty does when it has money. It uses it for toys rather than invest it for the future. And I think what we're going to talk about today, I think is really important because I believe that Western Christianity lives in a mindset of lack or poverty and not in a mindset of wealth. And I think that's what's causing a lot of our problems and limiting our reach into the world because we are doing ministry, we are doing our lives thinking that we are always in need of something before we can do the next thing. Jesus said, "You will have what you need for today." What if you began to live your life with this mindset? I have everything I need for today. Wouldn't it set you free if you didn't start the day from a place of lack and worry and fear, but rather started from the place of, I have enough for today? I think that's important, and I think that's the beginning of it. Why? Why am I even talking about this? Christianity, faith, I would say, according to the writings of Paul, go all the way back to a guy named Abram, who later became Abraham. And I believe that Abraham, in fact, the Bible tells us this in Genesis 12. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, your father's family, go to the land I will show you." So God confronted Abram and said, I want you to leave everything that's comfortable. Now here's what you need to know. When God showed up in Abram's life, at this point, Abram was already a wealthy man. In fact, Abram translates into the Michael Maynard translation, Big Daddy. But God was going to take Abram from Abram, or Big Daddy, to Abraham, which means father of nations. There's a big difference between Big Daddy, because Big Daddy's resources are all about Big Daddy. But father of nations is a transfer, a different way of thinking. And so God says to him, I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm not just going to bless your house. I'm not just reaching into your life to make sure you survive another day and to barely meet all your needs, which is the average Christian view on finances, wealth, supply in their life. He says, I'm going to make you a great nation, and I'm going to bless your socks off. That's in the original Hebrew, socks off. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you famous. You're going to be an influencer, have your own YouTube channel. You'll be a blessing to others. You'll be a blessing to others. Do you see the difference between being rich and being wealthy? Rich, Big Daddy can be rich because it can be all about him. But if you're going to build a nation, you have to be blessed to be a blessing. Your wealth is not for you, it's for the future. Christianity hasn't thought about the future in my lifetime, not as a whole. It's been in survival mode my entire life. That's how I feel about it. You can ask the Holy Spirit whether that's true or not. That's not the word of God, that's the word of Michael. It's less reliable, but I believe it. I'll bless those who bless you, curse those who treat you with contempt, and all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. And this is where wealth comes in. An abundance mindset, a wealth mindset is about the future. It's about looking at tomorrow. It's about people who haven't even been born yet. It's about blessing a world that isn't here yet. Paul says this in Galatians 3:29, and now that you belong to Christ, you are the true children of Abraham. God's promise to Abraham belongs to you. Now this is important, because at Ordinary Faith, we started over a year ago talking about build ordinary faith. And we've tried to present this and help you understand that building ordinary faith is so much more than constructing a facility for ministry and outreach over on Bordeaux Lane. It's that we are building a tool. Now, we need a lot of resources to build that tool. I'm pretty sure God has them. We are convinced that God's leading us down this path. God has presented us with opportunities and things along the way that have confirmed that this is what He's up to. So we're not worried about how He's going to do it. We're not worried about the time frame. We are riding this roller coaster with the Father. And His hands are in the air going, woohoo! My hands are like, we're going to die. But building the tool of a facility is important. But the priority is to build faith in this community. We are looking at this community and our ministry from a position of abundance, that God has for us what we need for today. And so we have to trust that and walk into that. So I want to look at what Jesus taught about this in the Sermon on the Mount. And as we've walked through the Sermon on the Mount, we've talked about how that the Sermon on the Mount are basically the symptoms of trusting God. That as you trust God and you learn to trust God, these are the kinds of character traits, behaviors that begin to manifest, if you will, or present themselves in your life. So Jesus says this in John 19. Excuse me. Don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust can't destroy and thieves can't break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. Your eye is like a lamp. Did you know these passages were connected together? Listen to this. Your eye is like, he's just talking about where you put your treasure, and he says, your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. Now, I wanted you to see that the idea of laying up your treasures in heaven and light being the way you perceive life, this is what he means by light, the way you look at the world. These are connected ideas. And when he says lay up your treasures in heaven, I don't think he means lay up treasures so it'll be there when you get to heaven. What can you send to heaven that's going to be worth anything when you get there? They literally paved the streets in gold, according to Revelation. I don't think your 401k is going to help a whole lot with that, all right? No, I believe what he says, what he means is he's talking about the kingdom. When he talks about heaven, I think he's talking about the kingdom of heaven. And I think what he's saying is put your heart in the place that matters. If we see the world the way the world teaches us to see the world, and the world, everyone around you, likely the way all of you were raised, the world sees finance, abundance, needs, all those things from a place of lack. There's never enough. And you've got to get what you can get in life. As one of my old bosses used to say, get all you can all you get, set on the lid and poison the rest. That's the mentality of the world in which we live in. That has turned into things that where we are storing up, we're trying to find security in money and possessions. We're trying to find security in places we can never be secure. And if you think like everyone else in the world about what is available to you in your resources from heaven, that's not light at all. That's fear. If you look at your finances the way most people do, you're looking at them through a lens of fear and anxiety, and you're asking questions like, will there be enough for you, for me in the future? Fear is never spiritual. Do you understand that? It's never spiritual to be afraid. And I know some of you are going, well, what if you're about to jump off a cliff? Stupid isn't spiritual either. Your anxiety is not light. Your anxiety is not light. Fear is not light. Love is light. The modern church is afraid. This is how I'm seeing the world. This is what I'm hearing through the podcasts that are out there, the messages that are going out. People are afraid of the events in the world around them. They're afraid there's not going to be enough for them, their homes, their children, their churches. They're afraid of their sins. They're afraid of the sins of the lost world. They're afraid of the words and opinions of others. They're even afraid of the return of Christ. When the return of Christ will be the greatest celebratory moment that will ever be had. And Christians are afraid, I believe. And I believe this because I have struggled in all of these fears and more. But fear isn't light. Fear isn't discernment. Fear is darkness. Jesus showed us a way when he was on earth. He showed us a way to live without fear. He did it without possessions and finances. One of the things I love that he did that I think is really relevant for our day is that Jesus loved the worst of sinners, and he was never afraid of them or their sin. Jesus was never afraid of them or their sin. He was not even afraid of the opinions of religious peers around him. Which I mean, as a minister, I see this challenge of that because I'm looking at our community right now and I just want to love it. And then some parts of it I'm looking at going, but when I step out in love, I'm going to get crucified by my own people, by people who believe. There was a lady he met in John chapter 4, the woman at the well. You may be familiar with the story. She was the local town train wreck. I mean, she was a hot mess. She's the woman going to the well in the middle of the day because no one else is there and she doesn't want to deal with what people have to say. And I imagine she was somewhat feisty based on the words she spoke to Jesus. She did not have a great reputation. And Jesus was not afraid of her. He was not afraid of her reputation. He was not afraid of her sins. He was not afraid of her immorality. He wasn't afraid of any of that stuff. In fact, when that day's over, not only is he not touched by what's wrong with her, she's touched by what's right with him. And another one of my favorites is in John 8, the woman caught in adultery. I hate that story. I love the Jesus side of it. I hate the religious jerk side of it. Jesus never feared her sin. In fact, when they brought her out and they made their shocking accusation and they asked Jesus to stone her, do you know what he did at first? Nothing. He did not react. He settled into a moment. And I love that. I don't know if you realize when he sat down and drew in the dirt and did not react, he was actually creating a moment for the Father that he was in union with to manifest in the situation. That had to have happened because those Pharisees would have never admitted to sin if God hadn't showed up and his presence made them. They would have been happy. Well, they needed him to throw the stone because they were trying to get him arrested, but still they would have been happy to do the deed themselves. But Jesus settled in that moment, and I believe invited his Father into it. And in doing so, he stood for her and not against her. He never condemned her. He set her free. When this was over, he said to her, in one translation, go and sin no more. And we're reading that like, well, yeah, they finally corrected her. No, he got out of the way, and he said to her, hey, you don't have to do this. This isn't who you are. Don't do this anymore. It's not your personality. It's not your heart. It's not who the Father is in you. Sorry, he didn't say all that, but he did say all that. So, love is the light. So I ask you, just like Jesus, first, what is your treasure in this life? This is kind of important. I mean, is it possessions? Is it a number in some IRA accounts? Is it a list of businesses, a number of employees? What is your treasure? Is it control over something or some people in your life? Because what your treasure could be and should be is that God, the Father of heaven, loves me. God, the Father, created humanity, and it was good. And now he's looking at Adam and Eve, and he says, oh, this is good. Now, I know you're like, well, it's good. And I'm like, no, it's good. He was happy. When God says it's good, I mean, he's motivated, okay? You're missing stuff in the translation. So he looks at it and it's good. But here's the thing. God never created man to manage his own reality and existence. It's kind of like this. If you ran a daycare filled with toddlers, okay, they can walk and be annoying. Not that all toddlers are annoying, but some are. You have this daycare. You don't walk into a daycare full of toddlers and give them keys to the cars in the parking lot. Not a good idea. Entertaining. Great video. Probably going to go viral. But not a good idea. Mankind was not designed to handle its life by itself. You were never meant to drive your own car. You were meant to be chauffeured everywhere by a loving Father. That's what the Father meant. He meant to stay at the wheel and take you all the fun places he wanted to go with you, that you wanted to go with him. That was the original intent. And then somehow we got the keys. And it's been lock up on the interstate ever since. We're running into everything in sight going, I don't understand what's wrong. Well, your feet don't reach the pedals. You don't know what you're doing. So what is your treasure? And I say discard the American consumeristic lie that we've been filled with since birth and embrace true wealth. God, Father God is everything to me. Until he's everything to you, you are going to keep struggling and wrecking your car.